Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Jenna.
I'm John.
I'm Audie.
And I'm Seth.
And John's a little concerned about the coronavirus, so he's in full hazmat regalia today.
You may need to lean in a little, John.
That might be a bit too much, but all right.
Yeah, you might want to readjust your filter now.
Yeah, it's like...
Not that
no,
one, the one on your mic.
Oh,
Pull it.
no.
Yeah,
there
you go. There you go.
Oh.
Careful.
No, you just got coronavirus all over it.
It's okay. I'm young. I'm fine.
I take that. Well, since you've already messed up my microphone.
John's concerned he's immune compromised. It's all those STDs, I think.
Ah.
Snap.
Or was that just his character in D&D?
That's
Copious. Does he have STDs?
how many STDs did that scavenger give you when you had sex with him?
I need an adult.
Yes.
We're
So
here
did
to
we.
talk about
So
infections.
did we. We
Listen.
needed an adult too, and it's like it's gonna happen again. You're just
I was pumping him for information.
Yes, you were.
You were pumping him for something.
Yeah, you were.
You were definitely pumping him.
Even though it was, this is no laughing matter.
No.
Just what doesn't kill you gives a dark, twisted sense of humor and just coping mechanism.
Sure.
Yeah, this is pretty serious time altogether. I think we can agree on that.
Right.
Cope is actually the name of my character.
Yes. Copious Homewood
Yep.
is his character's name in our D&D game.
That's the perfect reaction.
Yes.
But what
So-
we're actually here to talk about today is the effects that COVID-19 and the coronavirus spreading is having on the
Everything, basically.
everything, but
Small
more specifically,
businesses, artists.
yeah, and the convention community that supports them.
That is sad. I don't know what's gonna happen with that.
So, Planet Comic-Con, they've officially rescheduled
yeah.
or postponed. Do they have a new date yet?
No, they said they will have it out in the next couple of days.
Okay.
What about and Grand Con, which as
Is
far as
Grand
I
Con
understand,
canceled?
yeah, they've postponed. I think you might look them up, Seth, to see exactly what, but they're a shoestring con because they like it to be free, and it's a great con from what I've heard. But now that they've had to postpone or cancel, I don't know which exactly they said, but it's not happening now.
Where is it?
At
Grand
Grand
Island.
Island.
Right there over your
Okay.
shoulder.
Well, that's the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're normally what, a week? They're a week after Comic-Con, I think, is when Grand
That's
Con was
this year.
scheduled.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna be.
But
Yeah.
I think it just depends on the year.
Right. Okay.
I was
Not
gonna
finding
go this
any
year.
web
Yeah.
page for it.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I'm
and we
still
wanted
going.
to go, but I was on call, so or I am on call that
Well,
weekend, so I couldn't
but-
make it. But now maybe it'll
And
be.
now maybe that fortuitous event that happened, this might work out in your favor. Just for this once, you might actually have luck fall on your
I
lap.
guess
and
I
it's like
could be
everything
lucky.
is-
Because unfortunately with them, like, Go RPG, Benito Garcia and his crew that we've had on the show multiple times, they were really depending on the exposure that Planet Comic Con and Grand Con was going to bring them.
Right.
And now they've had to cancel all their plans for that.
That is a bummer.
And there's many small creators.
I know a
And-
girl who's spent the last 3 months making merchandise to sell at Grand Con. And now she has no place. I mean, she's got to wait to hopefully sell it, down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff was timely.
Yeah.
because they were like political button parodies, like Crowley 2020, Make Hell Great Again from Superstition.
I gotcha.
So it's
Well, as long as they do it, I mean, before November, that should be okay, shouldn't it? I mean,
Hopefully.
yeah, there's other timely stuff. Like, every day makes the Star Wars stuff less relevant
Yeah.
because those movies are. You know,
Well, and the other
are
thing
out.
is, all of these events that are being postponed are all going to be butting up against each other and competing for the same group of fans when they get rescheduled for the fall. So that's going to be a huge calculation.
It is.
If they're able to reschedule them for the fall, because
Correct.
a lot of places are going to might have to deal with cancellation fees
Sure.
and losing their guests.
Right.
That
Are the guests
I
gonna
don't
be
know
able to
how
reschedule?
PlanetCon can have the
Yeah.
same guests. There's just no way they've got schedules. So
Yeah, and is that gonna like affect people, like the money that people would have spent paying to get photos and whatnot?
now they can't have the money because they're trying to use that money to supplement whatever. If they're in a business where they're used to being service staff and they depend on tips, or they're in a position that requires commissions on how many sales they make, all of those groups are going to be suffering. Or if you got to take off because your kid's school has been canceled, like here in Omaha, and now you've got to, you don't have a good sick leave policy because of the company you work for, or you have to go on short-term disability, which is the recommendation for some of these people, for 2 weeks. Like, most of us are living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to set them back potentially for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if anything
If
else,
not
this
longer.
virus is going to expose a lot of the shortfalls in our society where we don't have those safety nets.
definitely shortfalls
people
in the
need.
safety net.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm glad that at least the House passed the resolution to make COVID testing free for people. So,
Yeah,
so
I
that'll
mean,
help. Of course,
bef-
treatment isn't.
has
Well-
it passed the
Well,
Senate?
no, I think I
They
think-
added the treatment too.
Yeah.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Which is good because, like, I'm fairly well off with pretty good insurance, but if my insurance wouldn't have covered COVID testing, that was what, $1,600, $1,200
Yeah.
per test.
It is.
It
Katie
was
and I
over
can't
1,000.
take that sort of hit,
Right.
even though we were doing pretty good.
Not an emergency.
And we definitely can't pay to spend
Days in a
Days in a-
quarantine ward. Yeah.
or in the hospital.
Right.
And you're lucky enough you can physically work from home. A lot of people
Yeah.
are in jobs they can't work from home. Like Aaron's construction site for the Facebook data center. They can't build a building from home. They, I mean,
Right.
and if anything, because people are going to be using social media and their portal, the communication device more, they need the bandwidth. They need the servers and everything to help support that traffic. So it's scary for some people, and I think there's a lot of things we can do without realizing it to help keep those small businesses, local or national, afloat at least a little bit.
Well, one of the good things that one of the companies has done is Discord, the app that we all use to kind of keep in touch for the show, is they've opened up way more streaming channels for people to use for free,
Yeah,
so that people can still keep in touch while not being in touch.
right. Because one of the hardest hit groups is going to be the elderly, who, if they don't have family, well, one, you just can't go see them, period, even
Yeah.
if you do have family in town. But, and people who can go get goods for you. Like, has anyone explained how these quarantined elderly are supposed to get goods? Is, like, the nursing homes going to send stuff out, take requests? Like, there are very real logistical problems with this that they're facing. And, the elderly are one of the primary groups that are susceptible to depression, loneliness, things that can cause their health to deteriorate faster if they don't have support from a community.
Yeah, I know Linda. So Linda and I both have mothers that are in nursing homes, and they're both locked down, so they're not allowing any outside visitors in, which is good because it's going to prevent the virus from spreading in one of the most susceptible populations. But on the same note, like you said, it's horrible for the elderly that are in there that no longer have the contact from their relatives to
It's
be able to come in.
weird that we haven't set up a plan because we're overdue. And I'm, for once, I'm actually not even going to blame the Trump administration. It's all administrations. There should have been a plan in place for when this happened.
Absolutely. There's a great
But we did have a group
Pandemic
planning
response unit.
Yeah.
on the National Security Council that was completely wiped away. And at least if they'd have had those there, I imagine that those people, since that's their job, had some sort of a plan in place, and at least contingency ideas, and say, here's how this thing's going to play out. Here's what we need to consider doing. And I think that would have made a huge difference. But no, we got rid of that, and that was in place during the Ebola outbreak.
No, the H1N1 flu.
And that too, yeah.
So Michael Osterholm, he's a PhD in MPH. He's one of the science detectives who've been dealing with this for decades, like dealing with pandemics, researching how we need to prepare for these type of scenarios. And in his books, I don't have the latest one here, but I look up Michael Osterholm. Some of his books include Deadliest Enemy, Living Terrors. He predicted that most likely because of the wet markets, China was going to be a source for a potential pandemic, which a lot of people have said. But he's also talks about the fact that the U.S. Defense Department has not put the resources into this as they should have. Like the fact that they stopped shipping out of China in a lot of places, there are over 100 generic, like the 100 top prescriptions that actually keep people alive, insulin, heart medications, things like that, they're all generics. And the majority of them are being produced overseas. So right now, what he's having to do is work with the Defense Department to find alternative means. Because if we keep not getting those supplies, people are going to start dying.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the next shortage. It's not toilet paper, it's pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's just, he's a great, I think, interesting resource. He makes it very clear what the broader impact is going to be in situations like this if we don't start addressing them now.
Well, and
to kind of address what John was saying is that there should have been plans in place, is that this has always been a question of when, not
Right.
if.
Yeah.
right.
And there should have been better planning in place. But I guess, like, since COVID-19 is on the milder side of bugs that can, like, a bug
This
that
is
can
as
happen.
good as it could have been for a pandemic.
Yeah, but this should be used as a
Wake up call.
again.
wake-up call and like to test real systems and come up with real plans for when it's something worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Jenna, I don't want to necessarily say who you work for, but you work for a transportation company,
Yeah.
and there's huge concerns there about if people are not able to show up for work and keep
Right.
those transportation lines running, the impact it will have for delivery of all sorts of consumer goods.
Because the type of transportation I work for, the statistics have been done. Like, it is a federal concern whether or not we run. And if they don't run, in 2 days, they've shown the country shuts down. Because you can't move food, you can't move necessary supplies.
Right.
1 in 4 jobs are directly connected to the movement of these goods. It's extremely serious. It's a matter of national concern.
Yeah. Well, and if you start having the trucker community get sick
Yes.
and not showing up for work, and
Which,
not
thanks
able
to them being out doing this right now, thanks to the truckers, thanks
So
to the
should-
warehouse
Should
employees
there be
and the train
plans
crews.
to nationalize these systems? It's like have the
That's
National Guard take
socialism.
it over.
Well,
it's
ev-
not really a matter of socialism in a case of national emergency because we've done that before.
How would be nationalizing those systems help? Like, it's not going to be managed any better.
'cause
Probably
you,
not.
you need to have people that are experienced with keeping things running like that.
And you need to have people who are actually invested personally,
Yeah.
like boards. I'd hate to say it, but that's how it really sunk in for me how real it was, because of the money they were willing to spend to turn a non-technically oriented company into, okay, we're going to send as many people we're home, we're going to put tools in their hands, we're going to have to make this work.
Sure.
Because there are sections of our industry that cannot stay home. Like I said,
Right.
you can't build a building from home. You can't run a train from home. You can't drive a
Right.
truck from home
Can
yet.
you build a building in a hazmat suit?
Well, that'd be
Um,
awfully tough.
That would be weird. Yeah.
I
You-
think
I
you'd
think a
die
heart
of
would be
heat prostration
probably-
pretty quick.
As I was putting this on, breathing is a little, it starts to fog up. And
Yeah.
It's like all kinds of things.
So it's
Well, and look, the United States, I mean, what are we like, 85% service economy?
Yeah.
And those are jobs that can't be done from home. You know, waiters, waitresses, cooks.
but then what
Hotels.
happens? They can't work from home, but if no one's going out either.
They don't need to be working.
Yeah, I was in
No, then there's
Chipotle
no
on
income,
72nd
right?
and Dodge at 7 o'clock Friday, and I was the only one there,
Yeah.
and that was surreal. To
And
say
where
the
was
least.
that?
72nd and Dodge.
Oh,
On the other hand, I was in the grocery store just the other day,
Wall to wall
and that
people.
was surreal.
Well, once
That
they're
was
out of
packed.
toilet paper, I'm sure they'll all go away. So
toilet paper and hand sanitizer.
But just getting back to the things that we can do in terms of small businesses, the final point I was going to bring up about the elderly, if you want to do something, especially having your kids home as a project, call a local nursing home. Ask them if there are people who rarely receive visitors or no visitors at all that might appreciate a card or a letter. They may not be able to respond, but just saying hello, hoping you're well, this is what I did. Little letters to give them something to look forward to would be nice. Small businesses, like a lot of us are probably more likely to know of local restaurants. You can buy gift certificates. And now, if you can, and then just plan on using them later when some of these curfews and social distancing policies have relaxed.
Yeah, the other thing I heard on the radio the other day we were listening to, they had a suggestion similar along the lines of that, is that if there is a local business, restaurant or whatever that you frequent quite a bit, you can buy a gift card and give it to the proprietor of the restaurant to help them with needed expenses during this difficult time when they're not getting revenue in, if you want to help them continue their business going. That's just something that you can do, just a way of giving them some money to help them through this difficult
Or
time.
buy them online.
Yeah. A lot of cosplayers and artists like Autumn Ivy, Christina Darkstar, they're starting to post, hey, I'm going to post more pictures since I can't go to this con. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. We really appreciate your business. When I asked Benito what we could do, he said, please share. Like, we need to all share each other's content more than ever to help keep each other relevant. And I think small businesses and artists need to tell us as an audience, what can we do to help you? What are you going to post content-wise that we can buy? What can we get from you and how? And then also be proactive. If you do love a business, if you are local, contact them, ask them, how can I help you? What are you posting online? What are ways to stay afloat? Can I share your Facebook page? I mean, just different things like that. I think if we're going to help the economy as much as we can in a time like this, we got to just be proactive with each other and thoughtful. Not just worried about that toilet paper on the shelf, but because we're either going to all rise together with this or at least help keep each other afloat, or it's going to fall apart, and we're going to see that gap between the haves and the haves not, I think, drastically increase from this pandemic.
Well, something else we can consider is, like, if you're going to, if you were or are planning on going to a convention, like I've got a couple going up there, Constellation 11 and Conquest. Both are still kind of up in the air, but any convention on their website will usually have a list of vendors that are coming. And so one option you have is like going on the convention website, looking up the vendors, and then maybe going to their website and ordering something.
Right.
That's a great way to support those.
Now, when's Constellation scheduled?
April 17th through the 19th.
So have they talked about postponing yet? Or
Right now, they are looking into the situation and will be making a decision soon.
Okay.
Given that it's in April, I'm guessing they're probably going to be canceling.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate because I love them.
Yeah.
Conquest is in May, so they might or might not cancel depending on
I doubt
how
they'll
things
cancel. They'll probably
progress.
schedule. But Bill's like
Yeah.
got a point. It's like all of these are going to be like in this one little weird like autumn sweet spot where everyone's going to have to choose rather
It'll
than
be
have
a-
spaced out cons. You're going to have to make a choice of which ones you want to spend money on.
And,
But
and maybe this is where we have to be responsible con attendees. Like, there are cosplayers who this is how they make their money, and it's understandable they have to keep producing their cosplays. But if you're a casual cosplayer and just get dressed up and go to cons, maybe this time you don't spend the money on the cosplay. You save that money to buy the merchandise to help those small businesses out.
Or donate to the con.
Donate to the con.
Because, like, one of the things that that Constellation is really known for is it's a smaller con, but the people who go are all kind of friends. It's a real community.
Close-knit group.
Yeah, and so this is like it's an important thing for this community in Lincoln, and they're going to be missing that this year. And
Are both of those in Lincoln?
Constellation is in Lincoln, and Conquest is in Kansas City.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a fair number of older people who go to Constellation every year, and even if it does happen in April, they're not going to be able to go. So they're going to be missing their community.
Sure.
Constellation is very susceptible to coronavirus, so yeah, you've got an extremely old crowd.
I wouldn't say extremely
I would
old.
say one good cold and flu season and they're gone. So it's like it's basically the older members of Ozfest that go to this con. So
No,
And it's
I
really
think
not.
you're being a bit too harsh there.
It's not going to be up
I'm not
to them
trying to be
anyway.
harsh. I'm actually trying to be descriptive.
It's not going to be
And
up to
you're
them
kinda
anyway. They will
hurting it for
close.
younger interested crowd.
The
Yeah.
governor's already
They
talked
don't care.
about closing.
I think
Yeah.
I do care,
You do. You aren't
and
everybody.
other
And
people do.
The attendance I saw last time might not be indicative of the
Seth,
con
he
itself.
says every con he goes to is a bunch of old people. He said the same
No, I
thing
know.
about
Yeah.
TeslaCon is. old
John
people.
is
I didn't know that,
ageist,
but-
so
Yeah.
well, we're just
The
ignoring.
fogey tends to see the other old fogies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn, damn it.
So and this brings up a good point. Just because you're young, it doesn't mean you're not immunocompromised. I think a lot of us know people without realizing it who are dealing with issues or have had issues in their life that have set them up to be more vulnerable. And this is where we have to support each other and find, talk to our friends. Hey, does anyone need anything? I'm good enough to go shopping. If you're not, tell me. Like, I've had several friends who've posted, because your child has to stay home from school, if they're going to miss a meal, tell me. I will help get you food. I mean, that's really what we're going to... So it's not just, okay, if you have no food for your kid, let me know, because they have to stay home from school. But if you can't get out, let me know. I will pick something up, spray it with Lysol, and airdrop it, like throw it out the car window and drive by.
Has something been done about the work people are going to miss, or the fact that arrangements have to be made for children?
They've discussed a universal paycheck for everybody, like $1,000.
Universal basic wage.
Yeah.
For the temporary.
For
rather
the
than,
temporary, yeah.
Because here's the thing, 37% of nursing staff have kids in school, and if schools are out, you've now dropped your ability to
Yes.
take care of the sick.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like-
no, there is no plan. Because we've never thought that this could become an issue. And that's why Italy was at a point last week where even if their medical staff tested positive for coronavirus, if they were not showing symptoms, they had to keep working and potentially exposing people because they just need the care.
But like Seth said, though, it's like this was going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And why don't we have...
We are a
some-
Everybody
short-sighted
plays
species.
everybody
And-
plays the risk game, and it's like, well, what are the odds that it'll happen on my watch?
Well,
Slim and none.
as the population increases, the ability of a virus like the coronavirus to spread only increases. So
And it's not just
as we get more people,
Yeah.
we're gonna get more pandemics.
And not just the population, but as climate change increases, you've got thawing permafrost. We don't know what kind of
And-
viruses are hidden there.
And you got to think too, the way it was put by Michael Osterholm, which was really well, we build warships now for potentially war.
Right.
So, because we wouldn't expect to just suddenly have trained soldiers or suddenly have a warship.
Right.
So we need to be doing the same thing for this. When Puerto Rico was hit by the hurricane, 80% of the world's IV saline bags came out of a factory there. And within immediate weeks, there was a worldwide shortage of IV saline bags for hospitals and medical staff. Like, it's that easy when resources of that nature are concentrated because only a few people are willing to invest in it.
Well, so here's a question for everybody. Do you think that this COVID-19 will actually be a wake-up call and that policies will change going forward?
No.
Or do you think that
Well, I hope
we'll
so.
be like the dog that sees the squirrel? As soon as COVID-19's gone and the next thing comes up, this will all be forgotten. Much like the issue with gun control. Every
know.
time there's a mass shooting, everybody's all on it, and within a week or two, it's
One of the
gone and we're on
things
to the next
about
thing.
This thing is like I was watching Fareed Zakaria, and it's like I had a doctor on that's showing this is growing exponentially, which means you have 1, then you have 2, then you have 4, then
Sure.
you have 8, and in 30 days it's 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
Or 15 encounters. 15
Yeah.
encounters make 15 million exposures.
exactly. And I was going off of 1, but
Yeah.
we have way more than that. But it's like that's like we're that's what happens first of all when you don't have testing, and this is a very realistic scenario. So I don't
Yeah.
think anyone's going to be forgetting this anytime soon. It's just
Now,
started.
The Nebraska governor, Ricketts, said that they aren't closing schools yet. They're going to wait until they have the second confirmed case of community transmission here. But they
UNO is
found
closed.
one.
OPDS is closed, I
They
thought.
found one.
Temporarily.
They found one. But they're not doing really sufficient testing right now. Odds are there are more out there community spread right now. Why isn't he being proactive in closing the schools at this point? Why risk
Well, they're-
another week
they're-
of school?
They're currently closed. I think they're closed for 2 weeks because spring break was
All
coming anyway.
schools?
Oh.
Yep.
Iowa Western has done that. Metro
Yeah.
will close Wednesday.
And then
Like-
he
Why
said
Wednesday,
once
I
they
don't
get
know,
their
but-
the second confirmed spread,
Yeah.
they're going to close for, I think he said 6 to 8 weeks.
In my company alone, we had several cases identified where people had traveled abroad and then come back to work and not told HR.
Oh.
And one was specifically escorted out, like by guards because she started sort of showing signs of a cold and had been to Thailand in the last month.
Oh no.
Is
So-
that fear or is that
That's trying to be safe. That's not fear. That's trying to be safe because the reality is there.
yeah?
Well, I had somebody in our office that was in direct exposure to somebody that was positively identified with the COVID virus. And so they sent them home. Now, fortunately, Linda and I haven't been in the office for 2 weeks, so we weren't around when she was there in the office. So we're lucky in that respect. But that doesn't mean that we haven't come in contact with somebody else because you still got to go to the store and get groceries.
I was at a convenience store 3 days ago, and one of the clerks sneezed, and one of the patrons called the police on him.
What?
Oh my.
Yeah.
What?
No, this is how crazy it is. My mom is a small woman, like 5'3", 103 pounds. Like, she's got Parkinson's, and one of the last times she went to the store, she accidentally slipped and dropped her basket, like her grocery basket, and stuff spilled everywhere. No one helped her. No one asked if she was okay. Not even the sales associate in the grocery store. None of them wanted to touch her because obviously there's like this fear, like, are you sick? Are you having a moment? Whatever.
Yeah. Well, and it's the whole stay 6 feet away from anybody because you don't know
But
if
this
they're
was before
infected.
that. This was
Oh,
this was
Sorry.
2 weeks ago, because the fear was already starting to set in like
Right.
that.
Right.
Like
Has
it's
anybody noticed how much of us are starting to cough a lot more?
Well,
that's allergies.
I just
Yeah.
drank that iced tea wrong.
And there's also
So,
the psychological thing as we talk about this stuff. Yeah.
You
I'm
feel like you have
pretty
to
sure-
clear your
Yeah.
throat.
This
have
is
it,
our
but-
second show today. I've ran out of stuff to drink and my throat's getting dry.
But I mean, it.
Also, I'm terribly, terribly ill. Give me a
Oh.
I just.
Now, sorry, I was just going to ask: is anybody aware of any other cons that are scheduled for this spring that are being postponed? Ocon, they're not doing anything till the
Ocon
fall,
has
right?
changed to August.
Okay,
I don't know if that'll change or not.
okay.
Um,
Have you heard about British Fest? Because they were doing one this year,
Moose
right?
said he canceled.
Oh,
but
canceled,
I
okay.
mean I heard a limited bit, but if he had something planned, he was keeping it on the extreme lowdown because
Okay.
no one really knew anything about it.
Gotcha.
The Ren Fair for the Bellevue Berry Farm is normally in May too. I
Wow.
haven't heard anything yet. They might be holding off
Yeah.
to see.
Right.
It would be. I don't know if it's wishful thinking or not that it'll be better by May, but I hope so. I mean, I really do.
Well, I
It
mean, how
depends
long
on
was
how well the
China-
social
How
distancing.
long was in China locked down? Wuhan.
I think they still are, aren't they?
They are
Well,
still are.
Yeah.
Social distancing is only supposed to slow it down,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that
Doesn't stop
Uh,
it. So
yeah.
does that kind of means that implies that it's going to be a longer duration event then,
Well,
right?
Right.
and then you've got to worry if once everyone's released from their homes, if they weren't in quarantine long enough, it starts popping
Sure,
up again, which
sure.
a lot of experts think that's what's going to happen with China.
Yeah.
It's going to explode again once
Yeah.
they're allowed to go back to work, and
Right.
then it's going to be another wave.
Well, and the scary thing is that they don't know yet if once you contract it, you develop an immunity to it. Because they said it could be like strep throat, where you can get it again and again and again.
Or it might be like chicken pox.
Right,
Or the flu.
right.
But you can get the flu again and
Sure.
again and again.
So yeah, so that's kind of a scary thing. If it's something that you can't maintain a long-term immunity for, then what do you do?
Well, it's
I mean, you've
also-
got
the
what, a
name
year
is,
or
is,
8?
is novel coronavirus, which means it's actually new. We
Mhm.
have no previous
Exposure to it.
epidemiological history with this,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's more devastating. It's going to hit who it's going to hit, which is why you've got like at this point a mystery population that is extremely susceptible. We're not exactly sure why. I mean, the standard, you have diabetes, you have other chronic conditions, you're old, you're extremely young, you're going to be more susceptible. But there's also kind of a little like randomness.
hmm
It's not really random. We just don't understand the variables yet.
Yeah, well, I've read some experts think that like 40 to 70% of the population could get this, and if it maintains a 1% fatality rate
That's
across
a pretty
that,
high number.
that's a pretty big societal impact.
But it could easily mutate into something more virulent at any point. The more people that get it, the more chances that that's going to happen. So, which is why they want to do this quarantine so you can burn it out.
Ideally.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us today on Sunny Thoughts and Happy Times.
Yeah.
What are we going to call this one? Coronavirus 2, the comeback, or what? It's like what's
Lockdown.
because we just did that, didn't we? We just
Yeah,
did-
but we were doing fantasy and sci-fi diseases.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And we really want to get out that and raise the awareness and keep everyone aware that support your small business. If there's any like nerdy groups, nerdy producers, manufacturers, artists, cons, like if you want your word out, you want your name out, tell us what you're doing. We'll post it to the Galactic Driftwood page. We'll post it in the comments of this podcast. Obviously we're still growing our membership, but it's supporting each other. And I don't
Well, I
think we
think-
can say that enough.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things that we have now, which they didn't have in 1918, is social media, where you can get on and at least maintain some contact with friends and with what's going on in the world. That way, so that's a plus for people that are quarantined at home and you can't get out. At least you don't feel like you've lost touch with the entire world.
Well, yeah, and speaking to small businesses again, this is going to have a huge impact on local game stores
Yeah.
because a lot of their business
Yes.
relies on bringing lots of people in for events and game days, magic nights, and those just aren't going to fly.
No. So if you need something to do, like you don't have to step into the game store. Maybe browse some games that you want, and instead of buying it from Amazon, please consider just looking up a local game store in your city and asking them if they have that or some other games, and buying it from them directly.
Yeah.
Having them ship the game to you instead of Amazon. Like that's really what we need to do. You need to think outside the box. And if you need something, ask yourself first instead of, oh, let me go to Amazon or Walmart.com. Hey, is there any other type of local store or provider of that material that I could get it from directly?
And another thing, like game shops, if you're stuck in the house with just maybe a couple other people, board games a great way to pass that time.
It's true. Or if you trust your friends enough to have them come over, like
Right.
Bill.
Right. Right.
Fool.
I'm going to get one of those digital thermometers so I can check everybody's forehead when they come over. for the
Actually,
next
it's
show?
just inside the eye. They show that
Oh,
the forehead is not an accurate read.
not a reliable. Okay,
I
well,
don't
that's
know. You
good to
should
know.
be
But-
pointing lasers at eyes.
I mean,
Well, it's
game,
not a laser. It's
Infrared.
infrared. Yeah.
your local game shop's got a lot of different ways to keep you entertained if you have to stay inside.
May I recommend the game Pandemic?
Maybe not Pandemic, but
Oregon Trail.
model painting.
Well, and I saw something on the news
That'll
the other
keep
day
you
that
busy
they
for a
said
while.
Pornhub is ramping up bandwidth.
Well, I mean,
Because
I mean,
people can't
that-
get out.
It makes
Yeah.
sense. It does. It's like,
Yeah.
That was the other interesting thing too. The statistic they said we're going to see two things in the next 9 months from this: either a huge baby explosion,
baby boom.
Yeah.
The quarantines.
yep, or
Boomer Part 2.
you're going to see a lot of psychological breaks and issues form from this, from the quarantine, the stress, the
Yeah.
economic burden of all of this.
Will they start
Like-
going back out again after it's over? It's like, if they get it back into if they really start getting into online stuff and the fear is there, will the old patterns ever reemerge?
Yes, because a lot of people don't want to cook from home every night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm wondering. So on Friday, our office went into a lockdown test. So they completely closed the building, told everybody, sent out an email the night before saying, work home tomorrow. We're doing a test closure. So we did that. And then yesterday we got a follow-up email, and they said, you know, we're just closing the building for the next 2 weeks. Everybody continue working from home. We're not opening the building. And so I forwarded that on to the guy that's the security guard at the building that I'm friends with. And I said, in case you hadn't heard, FYI. And he replied back and he said, yeah, I have heard that. And he goes, looks like it's going to be a really lonely 2 weeks for me. Because he's
Aw.
going to be there. Because we have a tenant up on the second floor, cruise line, which is also having, we all know about the
Yeah.
cruise stuff.
Oh,
And,
God, yeah.
and they're having a shutdown. And my sister actually works for the cruise company that's upstairs, and she's been concerned about her job because now they're stopping all cruises for the next 30 days. Two other cruise lines, Viking and Princess Cruises, are 60 days. They're stopping cruises, so that's impacting them. But anyway, the upstairs tenant's going to be the only one there, so it's going to be kind of a pretty quiet building for him. So I mean, you know, that's going to be psychological too, because you're kind of there at the building and you don't have your usual people to talk to, and you're just kind of sitting there, you know, with really
Waiting for
nothing
the
to
phone
do,
to ring
especially
or
if you're a
email.
security guy, because you're, you know, escorting people out and you're accepting packages and you're taking calls and things like that, and it's gonna be different. So
I think a lot of nerds are making jokes online about, you know, I've been training for this my whole life and gaming and things
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny. I think it might be easier for some than others, but when you don't have a choice, that really changes the mindset.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does.
And
Cabin fever's a thing.
so
Yeah.
talk to your friends. If you start to get really low, if you start to have, you know, that go to a dark place, like psychological health is important throughout all of this as much as physical health. Like talk to your friends, talk to your family. Join a new forum, join a new chat group, and maybe make some new friends that way. But reach out. Like don't let yourself go to that place.
well, you know, and I worry too about the psychological health of, you know, we've talked about the people that are forced to quarantine at home, but the psychological health of the people that are unable to quarantine at home, that are having to go out into the world
Yeah.
and interact, and knowing that that's out there,
Nurses, doctors.
Yeah.
right? Or like security personnel, like the guy at my office, or policemen or firemen and things like
The
that.
truck drivers, the warehouse people who are accepting the goods and stocking them on shelves.
Or construction workers
Construction
that we talked
workers.
about.
Train crews.
Those people, I mean, there's going to be a psychological impact on those people as well, because they know they have no option but to go out.
Yeah.
And it's like you're going out knowing that there's a killer out there that you could be carrying, contracting, and carrying and passing on, or
Potentially
suffering
bringing
from.
home.
Yeah, right. So it's going to be a lot of psychological impact for people, no matter what you're doing, or whether you work or stay at home. It's going to be impacting the whole of society. I think this is kind of a unique event for the world.
Well,
Well,
it was
for-
an inevitable event. It was
Yeah.
going to happen, and we're just not ready for it.
And it's going to happen again.
Right.
But for those people who do have to stay home, I mentioned Discord earlier. I highly recommend that. It's
Yeah.
fantastic for opening up a multi-person chat, just like not text chat, but their voice channels are extremely stable and good. And if you just need to hear another human voice and maybe play a game with somebody, it's a fantastic option.
Right.
And there's also Skype and other forms.
Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
So maybe, and if maybe you've thought about taking a class or having them for a while, a lot of classes are going to be offered online now. Like if you've ever wanted to do sewing, B Star, so, here in Bellevue, Nebraska, that Isa, she's got a great shop. I've taken sewing classes from her. All of her stuff is online, and she has a Facebook post. Like maybe it's time to do a class, or maybe some of you, if you've done lots of crafts and you never thought of doing an online class with your friends, maybe this is kind of how you do it. You stay connected that way and do something productive. We might grow a whole new generation of artisans and craftsmen out of this.
Get a project. Write a book.
I will say that I'm pretty happy with having
An army of droids to
well,
send out into
an
the world.
army of droids, yes, and also furry coworkers now.
Huh.
It makes the day much more friendly when the dog comes up and jumps in your lap, and you know you can pet the dog.
You can
and-
take that a couple ways, but yeah, being the cosplay nerd you are,
yeah,
there is a whole community.
yes,
I mean, that
Oh.
depends on whether you have dogs or cats.
dogs.
Yeah, I know you've got dogs, but I've got cats, and they don't help at all.
They don't help.
Dad, you don't need to type. You just need to rub my belly.
Well,
God,
so we've been
Reese
home.
is the worst with that.
We've been home for 2 weeks now, and the dogs are getting really used to us being here all the time.
Oh,
So-
that means someday they're gonna.
They're going to be really
sad.
depressed if we go back. But, you know, actually that's another concern of mine, is because I'm envisioning that as these companies send people home, they're going to start figuring out, you know what, think how much money we could save if we didn't have an office and we just had people work from home full time. And I know my
That
office
is
right now,
true.
my company's, they've got our building up for sale because they don't want to maintain a building anymore. And so the talk is that if they would sell that building, they would just contract for office space and then make it a hoteling space. So if you needed to come into the office, you'd come in for that day, find an open desk, and sit down and work.
Or have a meeting space.
Right.
This
How would
pretty
you
much is
abuse
it.
your coworkers then, Bill?
That's the question. Then that's the thing. You know, Linda's been saying you got to go back to work because you need other people to irritate.
If that's what
She's
they're
tired of
thinking-
you getting all your attention.
Yes.
If that's what they're thinking, then it's done pretty much. This is going
I
to be.
think this is a test of companies to see, and when they find out how easy it is to work from home. I mean, if you had a business and you could have people work from home and they can pay for their own lighting, heating, all that stuff, and you don't have to maintain a facility, maintain the grounds, keep the lights and the heating on, why have that expense?
It's going to depend on the productivity, how bad. Because I
True.
know productivity is going to drop drastically for my company.
Really.
There's just no way around it.
Especially if Pornhub is increasing its bandwidth.
But
Why
then
do
you
re-
got
so
You
Jenna,
really shouldn't be doing that during work hours,
You
John.
why do you
shouldn't be.
so why do you
You're
see that? I'm just
absolutely right.
curious as to how you see that impacting your productivity. Just because the lack of face-to-face time? Or?
one part is the lack of face to face, and one part is when you work for a company as massive as I do, and the people are further from the product and the results, you're less emotionally invested. There's less, I think, emotional incentive to, I'm going to do the best job possible at this because I want to make this thing that's going to go out. Like most people are anywhere from, I'd say 99% of the population is anywhere from 5 to 20 to 30 steps away from the actual product and what it produces. So it's, I think when you have that level of distance, the level of incentive to stay on top of things is not there. That I might be cynical though.
Well,
The other thing I worry about too is a lot of people are losing the art of discussion, the art of face-to-face encounters, and knowing how to deal in social situations. How much is this going to contribute to that too?
Sure. Well,
Like,
the same thing
like
with
learning
schools.
how to work and problem solve together. Like work environments are good because it keeps you learning how to work with different people and to problem solve. And if people have less test and don't work that social and mental muscle, I think you could see see that degrade. Because I noticed a huge difference when I went from academia, where I was only around a select number of people, generally around a certain day, worked a lot alone, studying, and then I taught classes, and that's about it. My social skills and my problem-solving skills were not as wide and as versatile until I went to the corporate world, where some people may have college degrees, some may not. Some are a lot older. Some are like the amount of people I was exposed to and the types of
Just
backgrounds.
the diversity of backgrounds.
I was forced to be exposed to has made me a better human being. And I think a better problem solver.
Did you ever teach online?
No.
I am. I'm going to have to now. I mean, I have before, but online is just, it's so impersonal. It's never.
It feels like it would be cold. I wouldn't want
It's-
to teach online.
I don't want. I do it, but now I'm gonna have to do it for all of my classes. And it's like, yeah. I mean, a very big part of my day is I enjoy going to work.
Are all your
I do.
classes shut off now? I mean, are the
All
University's
of my
closed?
Iowa Western classes will no longer meet until, well, at least for 2 weeks.
Okay.
They decided to make spring break for an extra week. UNO has shut down all classes for the semester, which
Okay.
is extreme, but
Yeah.
you know, I understand. Metro
What
Shut
about
them down
graduate?
or gone online?
gone online.
Okay.
They've shut down the in-class classes. But
What are
it's
they
like,
doing for graduations and stuff? Are they still? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay.
That's
That
going to be an
Receive your
interesting
diploma
question.
by
Yeah.
Amazon.
It's like that's sad because that's a big rite of passage moment for a lot of people. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Right.
Especially if you're the first person in your family to
Yeah.
get a college
Exactly,
degree.
yes.
Yeah.
Your
Or
whole
a
family
hi-
could be there and watch you and be proud
Yeah.
and all this
Yeah.
stuff. It's like
Wait for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
it is. There's always tedium involved in graduation, but it's very important.
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is.
Especially
I mean, I was the
ceremony
first.
that-
I was the first in my family to get a college degree.
Yeah, me too.
That was a big deal.
And that moment was very important to everybody, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I was the first in my family to get it. My mother was the second.
Hmm.
She got her college degree when she was like 78. Yeah.
Did you inspire her to go back? Or?
She had always wanted to, and but she was kind of waiting for me to get done, I think. And shortly after I got out, then she started taking classes. So, yeah, it was very impressive.
So it's and that's where we can be pretty creative and what is the word? I'm not able to say ingenuitive,
Oh,
Ingenuous.
Intuitive.
no,
inventive,
No.
Inventive.
when we need to be
ingenious.
And so
or,
so we need to do that now, not for our own sake. Like this asshole who hoarded 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer when he saw this coming and went across 3 states and purposely cleared out stores.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that somebody with COVID-19 should cough directly in his mouth. But
I hope he gets stuck with that stuff, and he just has to look at it forever as a
But
monument
but
to
here's
greed.
here's the crossroad. There are people who need it.
I know.
So it's like, yeah, we all want to be angry, but there was no laws against what he did. So Amazon should
aren't-
just have him sell it, but cap his cost.
There aren't
Yeah.
until you declare a state of emergency, in which case you can start confiscating stuff that are in the national
Can you in
interest.
America?
Yep.
Yeah, in the state of national emergency, yeah. So I imagine
And
the
we're
National
there
Guard's
now.
gonna- yeah,
That was declared
is gonna roll in
yesterday.
and start taking it, and it's like, here's what we think it's worth, and give them a check for here, $250.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be cool with that. I'd be cool with that for a lot of people. And I know Amazon, like, for all of its questionable practices, they're actually going to attorney generals and helping prosecute any of its sellers
That
that
are
Good.
gouging,
Profiteering,
price
yeah.
Yeah.
gouging.
Good.
no them
Price
and Etsy and eBay.
Yeah, I heard they already took a lot of people off. They've closed
Yeah.
a lot of accounts from people that were doing that. So
see, yeah, I think they need to be a little bit more aggressive with people like Jim Baker who are selling
Right.
Oh yeah.
COVID-19 cures.
But it's with silver too. I don't
Yeah.
think it's safe to take silver into your body in any way, or it's like
What?
So
I've not heard
colloidal
this.
silver, yeah,
Okay,
Jim
so
Baker,
one of the mega preachers, Jim Baker, has already been to prison for fraud
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and he under normal circumstances he's selling damn near inedible food for
Oh,
disaster
he's the
preppers.
guy who made the table of bucket food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Bucket food? I
Yeah,
just-
bucket like prepper food that's in buckets that can last like 20 years.
and so his current deal
Yum.
is he's selling colloidal silver,
Yes.
which will, according to the doctor that he had on his show, deactivate and kill COVID-19.
Yeah.
Because if that was true, why wouldn't we be doing that to reduce
Right.
the economic impact of this?
Because we're not super intelligent preachers that
Yeah, so you know
Secret.
you can buy your bottle of
Yeah.
colloidal silver
The
from
secret
him,
ingredient is Jesus.
At the low
Yeah.
price of what?
$50.
You know what
Yeah,
amazes me
he,
is
like
that
he is evil. I throw him in prison and don't
Yeah.
let him out.
what amazes me is that all these churches that have gotten rid of the holy water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think holy water would be immune to?
God should take care of that.
You would think.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like-
then you've got the churches who are like, no, you cannot transmit this through our holy water. Our holy water stays,
yeah.
and church remains in session.
It always
So,
amazes me
It
that
just turns a little Pentecostal, like with the snake handlers. It's like,
And-
if it's God's will, it's God's will. It's how it's going to work.
Did you hear about Trump's like spiritual advisor, whatever her name
No,
is?
yeah.
She's like they're not going to be canceling or moving whatever the conference she's talking at, and she has guaranteed people that she has spiritual protections against COVID-19 and the cure to that and all diseases. This is the
Yeah.
spiritual advisor to the President of the United States.
Well, luckily, I
Let's
think most states are paying attention. Most governors of the states are paying attention what the CDC says.
I would hope
They're
so.
putting it into effect.
They're enforcing.
And it will be up to them. Like I know, again, our Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts said that once they get their second confirmation of a local spread, that it's actually going now spreading person to person, and not only going to close the schools, but he said at that point, I think we're down to 250. You can have meetings or groups to 250 right
Oh,
now. It will be 5 to 20. So,
that's unfortunate because I was kind of hoping in cases like that the Darwin Awards would come into play and that these people
Are
would
they
kind of
gonna enforce
the stupid people would.
private citizen lockdown?
And he said,
Like-
yes, they will. And if it's reported, if you see somebody, he said it'll get to the point where if you see more than 20 people in a setting, you can call the police and they will break it up.
They
He
won't
actually-
break up fireworks, but
He
they'll
actually,
break up
yeah, he
Right.
actually said it will be enforced. So we'll see.
All right. Sweet.
I don't know. And that's where I do understand why some people who buy a lot of guns feel the need to have them, because if you think about it, yeah, it's for our own effect, but when you're at a point where a state can tell you to stay in your home for this, what's the next thing they can enforce?
Well, there also has to be a certain point where you recognize that the good of
I
society
do.
has got
No,
to come
no,
first.
and I do, but I totally agree with you on that. But you can also see how some people would
But
call that a
The
slippery.
Well, look-
haunting part is that the state's always been able to do it.
Yes.
Look at what they did
But they
in
haven't. So
Yeah, I know, because it
Like-
actually impedes business. So our capitalist greed is actually the factor that's saving us from a total totalitarian nation. So
Right.
Look at the measures they took for Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans. They went door to door and took people's guns. They actually did that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the government can kind of. I mean, they've got the force to do what they want. They've got the military behind them.
well, that's just it. A state level society controls force. That's actually one of the definitions of a state level society.
But my thing is, like, I've known enough military and worked with enough ex-military that I have really faith in our servicemen and women to do the right thing by us. What is necessary.
Well, let's maybe not worry too much right now about government overreach until like COVID-19 is passed, and then we can kind of worry about the next problem.
Yeah, they said on the news this morning. They said, you know, when you encounter a situation like this, and government start doing things to control it, everybody screams about they're going too far, they're going too far, and then afterwards, and they look back at what really happened, then people say, well, they didn't go far enough.
Yeah.
Or they say, what was the other thing that was pushed through in a time of
Well, yeah,
panic
sure.
that shouldn't have been pushed
Right.
through?
Well,
Actually, they tried to the Republicans tried to push some anti-abortion legislation
Yeah.
into the COVID-19.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Hmm.
this is why we can't have nice
We
things.
can't
No,
have nice things.
no.
But I mean, it's like the government cannot do anything, and then we could just have it basically natural selection. Whoever lives, lives, and whoever dies, dies.
That'll lower the average age of the population.
Yeah.
Which it is weird if you think about it. How, I mean, I really can't think of any major previous plague that did not impact the very young, like children and babies.
Mhm.
Well, yeah.
Most of them do.
Yeah, like there's always both spectrums. Like
Yeah.
the middle, except for smallpox, which made breeding people like in that age group infertile in many
Yeah.
cases. It's always the very old and the very young, and kids are little plague carriers, but they're not getting sick unless they're already immunocompromised.
Well, before the last plague, we didn't have a large suite of vaccinations, but and of course there is a large population of people that are ignoring vaccinations now. But it's like,
You mean idiots?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let's just go ahead. You're idiots. I'm talking about you,
Yes.
anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you right now. You specifically are an idiot. You're dumb, and I'm calling you that.
There you go. And I second that emotion.
Personally. You personally are stupid.
yes,
Right, now that we've got that out of the way.
Yeah, you feel better, Seth?
I do a little bit.
Okay,
and
okay.
if you're offended,
I'm glad I have a channel where I can actually get this out.
America,
yeah.
Yeah.
First
And if
Amendment.
you're mad, be sure to mention Sean. Sean is the.
That's right. My name is Sean. If you want to tell me I'm wrong about this, comment, subscribe.
Is that SEAN or SHAWN?
SHAWN.
I think either will work.
I feel SHAWN is a little douchier, so I would think, yeah.
So this is you siding with the anti-vaxxers.
No, I'm just trying to define the mislabeling of your name. It's like, I'm amazed Bill doesn't actually define it since he made it up. But yeah.
Anyway, we've shown a very good history, I think, of pulling together when necessary. Like when you think of the World War II mobilization movement, World War I cases. Like we've been able to show in different periods our society be able to work together for the better good.
And this is a weird thing, though, because we're going to have to show our solidarity by not being together.
Yeah.
But do you think that enough people now believe that it's real and not a hoax? Because we were at the
don't.
grocery store last weekend, and there was a guy that was just screaming to somebody else that he ran into there that he knew about how this was a Democratic left conspiracy. They couldn't get rid of Trump with the impeachment. They couldn't get rid of him because of the Russian hoax thing. So now they're dreaming up this COVID-19 hoax in event to ruin his candidacy and derail his presidency and his possible reelection. And he was just standing there. And I mean, he was talking loudly so that everybody in the area could hear him. I mean, he was not trying to be, just having a normal conversation. He was doing it loud enough that he made sure that people around him knew.
Fear
what
is the
he was-
mind killer. Is
Exactly,
it better to
exactly.
believe this is a hoax so you don't have to cope with the potential consequences?
Yeah.
He's
Or-
afraid, yeah.
Yeah, that's fear to me. But unfortunately, fear makes people do crazy shit, like fight over toilet paper.
I'm going
Yeah.
to give Jenna an inspiration point for that. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that's really what it comes down to is fear, and I think that's where maybe we got to be a little forgiving. Like, you should try and provide evidence when there are signs of ignorance like that, but then there's also a point where there's nothing scarier than when you don't have control and you see your world falling apart, or that you could be vulnerable. Because it sounded like from your description of the individual when we talked about this before, he's in a vulnerable age group,
Yes.
and that's, I think we need to meet kindness with fear and education, anger with fear, with kindness and education. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the only way that we're not gonna all, like, some groups completely hate each other and the extremes become even more extreme, because that's the other half of this. We're already having a hard time meeting in the middle to talk logically about
So-
the issues.
I wonder, and I don't watch it, so I don't know, but I wonder if the message coming out on right wing outlets has changed, like Fox News. Are they presenting this with the same level of honesty and clarity that like the Washington Post or New York Times might be doing?
So when I've gone to my mom's house, because unfortunately she's one of the Fox News watchers,
She's that demographic. I mean, old.
but she's not in her beliefs. Like, it's
She's not right wing.
no.
Why watch Fox?
Be
Why? That's
I mean, it's complicated. I'm not going to bring it up here. But only to say that when I've seen Fox News, I see them trying to remain measured. Like, there does seem to be an attempt trying to bring on doctors, trying to ask clear, good questions. Like, I think it's probably been the best. The segments I've caught at different times of the day when I've gone to check on her
Yeah.
have been probably the most measured and the most responsible they've had in a long time.
They
Well,
did
that's
put one
reassuring.
of their shows on hiatus because the host said things
Yes.
about.
I
Oh,
don't
really?
remember who it was.
Yeah, I
but
can't remember her
yes.
name, but it's like, yeah, she's. her
Oh,
show's-
that Tommy, what's her face?
Yeah.
No.
I thought was that.
Was it Tommy?
The
Knight?
young blonde girl.
That's. It sounds like something she would say. She's.
Yeah.
I don't see the appeal of that idiot, but it's like, yeah. It's like, but
Because-
yeah.
The young blonde thing. That's
Yeah.
the only reason I watched it.
Well,
Who says things that match up to your hardcore angry
Yeah.
beliefs
But
and
she's
fears.
basically spreading some disinformation and conspiracy theory stuff, and they put her show on hiatus. They said that's not why, but the timing is just
Yeah.
Too coincidental.
yeah too online with that. So,
Right.
but yeah, good for Fox. I mean,
And hopefully we'll see more of that. So
it's amazing that Trump is so bad and his administration is so bad that some of the Fox hosts literally can't drink the Kool-Aid anymore. They have to actually stand up and say, "I can't do this anymore."
Well, I think in all fairness, they're probably more concerned about losing a large part of their demographic
Yeah.
if they
should.
don't be honest.
The coronavirus, yeah, they should be the ones that are
Yeah.
spreading the news.
So just to recap what we can do for each other as a nerd community, check in on each other, see who needs help, check in on the elderly. Like if you've got spare time in your home or for your kids, maybe make projects where you reach out to those groups, or even hospitals where people are no longer going to be able to get visitors, like children's hospitals and things like that, to start letter buddies and stay connected. Buy gift certificates from local businesses and restaurants to keep them going. In fact, if you need to buy anything, ask yourself first, can I get this board game from a local game shop? Can I get, this material from a local supplier versus Amazon? Really try and ask them. Ask these businesses, what can I do to get this from you now in this situation to help keep them going? Look at online classes to stay connected, or maybe help support artists who might be doing videos because they can't go to cons. This is now how they're going to get their information out. And look for those posts from your favorite artists, cosplayers, whatever, what they're providing since they can't see you now at their favorite con, where you can get their products and keep them going. That's really just stay talking, and most of all, post each other, share each other's stuff. We love Go RPG. We love, Ocon. We're going to continue to post anything that they have. A lot of businesses.
Check out the Synergy
Nation Network.
Network.
The
We're
Weekly
on there.
Geekly.
There's a lot
And-
of good groups out there, a lot of good
Including ours, yeah.
podcasts.
Yeah.
including ours,
And
yeah.
most importantly, take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Absolutely. Get
Yeah.
your sleep. Work out.
Is this
Keep-
maybe the final nail in the coffin for small retail?
For small retail.
Potentially.
Yeah.
That's why we got it. That's why you have to look.
Gamers, and
See-
sci-fi stuff, but all of it. It's like it's already struggling.
I-
Amazon's pretty much been
I-
a full court press on these people.
Don't think that I don't think that this will be the final nail. Like we've been seeing resurgence in like smaller shops.
No, if that's true.
But that's a luxury.
It's like there's
A small
lot
shop
of-
is a luxury
be.
for a lot of people, and that's where.
But they're also they're not only about selling things, they're also about community.
Right.
So like the game shop in Bellevue and its other location down. It's actually really close to you. But the game shop is about like getting people together to play games. Like,
Well,
yeah,
so
you
is-
buy stuff there, but
so
you
is
also
Krypton
go.
Comics, so was Sparta. Sparta Game Store was about all that, and it's gone.
So that's why we're really imploring our audience to not only for themselves look at where you can get stuff locally and reach out to them and try and keep those small businesses afloat, but ask, bring it up to your friends, conversations, family, kind of highlight for them. It's easy to get tunnel vision about yourself, but I think what we'll do as a community and connecting in that way, by supporting each other, keeping all those boats afloat, that's where we could stay sane.
You know what we need is something like Uber Eats, only for board games. You call up and order a board game, and then they'll go out and pick it up and drop it off at your house.
Well, only if it's for buying and not you don't
Renting.
return it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Then you're
Spielbound.
right.
Like I feel bad for Spielbound right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like a lot of that stuff they can wipe off with Clorox wipes.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
And
All
it
right.
lives,
And post,
lives on-
small businesses, ours, tell us what we can do. Don't leave it to us to figure it out. The more you can put that up front at the front of your page, this is how you can support us, this is what we need, the people who can will.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you all. It was
Yeah.
a good discussion. And we'll see you next time. We'll have a discussion of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on the program, our
Hey.
trip there. So
Bill's Consumer Hour,
It'll be-
as
yeah.
Sean put it.
you're right. It'll
Thank
be
you, Jenna. I really appreciate that.
it'll
But
be a good opportunity with
Everyone's
Disneyland
favorite
closed
cast
for
member,
everybody to
Sean.
get up to speed on when they reopen. You can run there and get all the good deals.
yeah, well, until COVID-19 is past, stay home, stay safe, and
Stay
take care
online.
of yourself.
All right.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.